Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you with Saturday NBA action courtesy of the association with one Adam Ship, my money sharer. Adam is coming to us from the road. He is out on a trip. Adam, say hello to your loyal fans. It's been a whole week since they've heard you, at least on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been a while. It felt weird doing the show, the deeper dive with Lofty today. I'm not used to doing the podcast anymore. I was sitting around last night trying to remember what days I even do it on. So glad to be doing another one. It's been a while.
Good times. Well, enjoy that Florida weather. You missed out on a good 5 inches of snow here in the DC area. It was a mess. We had 5 inches of snow and it was 30 degrees. The next day it was 57 degrees.
Yeah,
I could have just skipped shoveling. Yeah, I could have just skipped shoveling, but
right. Yeah, I think it's been 80 between 78 and 81 every day that I've been here.
Yeah, that's good times. Good times had. Well, but let's jump on in here. Reminder, this is your first look podcast. We, of course, are recording this on Friday night. There will be a full game-by-game breakdown with Adam and I going through all 11 games on the NBA DFS strategy show. That'll be about 11:15 on Saturday morning. And then, of course, you will have the live before lock with one fast Eddie Fear taking you down the home stretch. I think that one may start at 5:30 Eastern because there is 11 games. He usually starts a little early, but check Twitter for that one. In the meantime, we've got a couple teams, or several teams actually, on a back-to-back. There is one game at 1 o'clock. It's between the Portland Trail Blazers and the Philadelphia 76ers. If you are looking to play a Boban, you are going to need to do that on a showdown slate. Teams on a back-to-back, both games at home are Atlanta and Charlotte. Teams that were on the road Friday night but will be home on Saturday include the Pelicans, the Wizards, and the Jazz. Teams that were home on Friday but will be on the road Saturday is just the Dallas Mavericks. And then teams that are on both ends of the back-to-back on the road would be Minnesota and Detroit. So now, even though we are coming off of the All-Star break, we had all sorts of injury news and other things leading up to lock. So with 22 teams in action, we're going to get the value we need. So we'll focus mostly on the top end plays here because as we saw on Friday night, Karl Anthony Towns was out with a concussion. He was in a car accident on Thursday, and then Luka Doncic was out Friday night with an ankle injury. He may or may not play on Saturday. So there'll be all sorts of spots where we can find some stuff. Plus, with the 9 teams that are playing on the back-to-back, they could end up with some injury concerns. So now that we have all of those ground rules laid out, Adam, let's talk about point guard here. We have an intriguing matchup with OKC hosting the Sacramento Kings. Of course, I didn't write OKC down on my list, but they are on a back-to-back. And let me double-check here. Why are they appearing? Yes, there they are. They are a home for both of theirs. They played Utah on Friday night. That game is just about to tip off, and they're getting Sacramento, who is rested, on Saturday. Talk to me here. Russ Westbrook, you got Kemba Walker, both pretty on the expensive side. You've got D'Angelo Russell, first-time All-Star. He's going against Kemba Walker. We've got Kyrie Irving, who looked relatively decent, but he's 9,100, coming off his knee injury, and then played in the All-Star game, played solidly on Thursday. What do you like here at amongst the cream of the crop?
Yeah, I mean, I like the two guys at the top with Westbrook and Kemba. A good spot for both of them, at least as far as pace goes. Brooklyn has stepped it up defensively. Sacramento has been a little better than they were earlier in the year. But the Oklahoma City-Sacramento game should be fast-paced on both sides. It's a nice paced-up spot for Kemba. We know that Westbrook obviously has been phenomenal lately. Plays Utah on Friday. We're still, awaiting the results of that game. But going into that game, had a double-double or a double-digit triple-double streak. So we'll see if he extends that, but it's a good spot for him to either keep it going or start a new one against Sacramento. The numbers have been really good since we saw Billy Donovan start to stagger Westbrook and George's minutes more. A little bit of a decrease in usage as he's deferred to George a bit on the offensive end, but nearly a 50% assist percentage over the last month since they started doing that. So really like Westbrook a lot, obviously. And then Kemba, as expected, has been much better on a per minute basis since Cody Zeller's return to the lineup. Going into Friday night through 5 games, Kemba was averaging 1.37 fantasy points per minute alongside Zeller, compared to, I believe it was like 1.05. I don't have it in front of me now, but I think it was 1.05 fantasy points per minute over the entire stretch where Zeller missed. So having him back certainly is helpful. He's got the nice matchup against Brooklyn. D'Angelo Russell scares me a bit. Not only is it a pace down spot against Charlotte, it's not that it's a bad matchup against them, but with Karis LeVert being back and supposedly being in line to start playing big minutes, according to Kenny Atkinson, that's something that I think negatively impacts Russell. We saw earlier in the season that LeVert had a bit of a negative impact at times, and it's just makes me hesitant to pay one of the higher price tags that we've seen on Russell.
All right, I see I didn't scroll down far enough when I was doing the back-to-backs, Adam, so I missed a couple. Indiana's on a back-to-back. Chicago is on a back-to-back. What was the other one I missed here? This is riveting. I think I mentioned Dallas. Utah was there. So there's a few teams on back-to-backs. Minnesota, another one. So it looks like there's 11 teams thus far. But we'll, again, go over all that. That's not really going to drive things at the moment, since most people are coming off a good amount of rest anyway, outside of being in the All-Star game. If we're looking for some just quick placeholder value here, Adam, I think maybe we consider a $4,200 Marcus Smart. You've got DeLon Wright and Avery Bradley checking in back-to-back for those guys, but Minnesota was decimated by injuries yet again. Even though that was mostly in the front court with their bigs, they do have a trickle-down effect to their guards. Anybody popping just at first blush, because we know there will be definite value throughout the day.
Yeah, Dwayne Wade's been playing, 20 upper 20s, low 30s in minutes in competitive games. It's not the most appealing matchup against Detroit from a defensive standpoint or a pace standpoint, but it's kind of like his price tag has just hit a wall because there are enough games where he sits out or for one reason or another doesn't play close to 30 minutes that in competitive games he really gives you a lot of upside. So I think that he's reasonable, as is Tyler Johnson going against Atlanta, one of the best spots that you can get in DFS, obviously. And then, if Karl Anthony Towns were to sit again, you can take a look at, Jeff Teague, Derrick Rose with increased usage.
All right, heading on over to the 2 guards, we have one James Harden, who fouled out on Thursday night. Adam, I think it was the first time he fouled out in like 2 years, something like that. I think he's fouled out. I looked back, I think it was like 4 or 5 times over the last 3 or 4 seasons, so he doesn't foul out very often. But the last time he fouled out, same ref that got him this time. I was reading an article about that. Kind of weird, right?
All right, trivia question for you. How long had it been since both members of Houston's starting backcourt fouled out of the same game?
Ooh. They've assuming you mean of the guys that were starting on Thursday, Chris Paul and Chris Harden, or
just their starting point guard and shooter.
Oh gosh, 5 years,
20.
No kidding.
I mean, that's what I heard this morning. I didn't fact check it, but yeah.
Wow. I bet if I went back and looked at that roster, I would have had some of them on my season-long fantasy teams from 20 years ago. I'm trying to think off the top of my head who that even would have been, but I'm falling short. Well done, Adam. I like that. I like that a lot. But we got James Harden here up at the top. You've got Devin Booker, Steph Curry, phenomenal. He is just simply amazing. He's the one guy I'm fine going to on the Golden State Warriors, just because he makes those 3-pointers so easily. You never have to worry about him getting his shot, and he dunked the other night. Not that we get bonus points for that, but it was nice seeing the 30-year-old Steph Curry throw down there. What do you like at the top of the shooting guard position?
I mean, obviously it's an appealing matchup for Houston from, just a game environment standpoint, but probably won't really get to Harden here. I think it'll be more interesting if he actually were to sit, which, I doubt he does, but he is questionable. Then obviously it opens it up for Gordon and Chris Paul. But I'd rather look to that upper middle range where, you do have Steph Curry, who obviously has tons of upside on any given slate. You have Devin Booker going against Atlanta at a reasonable price tag. Tough matchup for Bradley Beal, but once again, he is just dismantling Charlotte as we speak right now. And we have seen, even with Thomas Satoransky back in the lineup, we've seen more of Bradley Beal running point guard and Washington playing bigger lineups. in this game against Charlotte. If that continues, you should see better per minute production from Bradley Beal.
Did you see that Kelly Oubre drew the starting assignment on Thursday for the Phoenix Suns? Yes, those Phoenix Suns that are 5-28 over their last 33 games, including a 16-game losing streak. But hey, Kelly Oubre, price has come up on DK. He's up to 6,000 now. He played 40 minutes against Cleveland. If he sees anywhere in the mid-30s, I'm comfortable with him at that price point. He did get 16 shot attempts in the starting role. He had 16 the game prior to that, 10 before that, 19 before that, 10, 13, 16. So he's been getting his shots. As long as TJ Warren continues to be out, I think he's in a good spot. And I was kind of surprised to see him now having a shooting guard eligibility here for the Suns. In addition to him, we have Kent Bazemore, who is on the back-to-back, but he will be playing for Atlanta. He is, 4,400. That's a nice price point there, going against Phoenix in that same game. And then Buddy Hield was looking good. Now he's 6,500, tougher matchup going against OKC, but don't hate him there. As you look at the mid-tier, Adam, do you like those guys? We now have Jeremy Lamb, for whatever reason, coming off the bench. At least he was on Friday night. We'll have to see what happens Saturday. That was actually not even announced by the coach. That came out from the Charlotte Hornets PR. So I'm curious to see what happens from that. I was trying to find some news courtesy of Roto World, but they did not have any updates for that reasoning. What do you like here in the mid section?
Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. I'm wondering if it was just like a disciplinary thing or something like that. Because it, like you said, it just came out of nowhere. But either way, we'll have to keep an eye on that. I'm with you on Kelly Oubre. Obviously you can take anyone facing the Hawks usually, but Oubre is actually talented offensively, and he really has thrived since going to Phoenix. Playing more on one hand, playing more minutes alongside Devin Booker certainly shouldn't do him any favors. But on the other hand, since he came to Phoenix, we'd still been seeing him close games alongside Booker whenever Booker's been healthy. So I don't think it's going to have too much of a negative impact on his per minute production, and I do think you see a little bit more in terms of playing time. So I do like Oubre. Kent Bazemore, obviously, likely to be one of the highest owned players on the slate, but a really good spot against Phoenix with Kevin Huerter still unlikely to play. Bojan Bogdanovic and Bogdan Bogdanovic both, I think, are appealing options. Bojan going against a Washington team that's been one of the worst teams defending the three-point line. And then Bogdan, who has finally been inserted into the starting lineup, still just $4,600 on DraftKings in a fast-paced game against Oklahoma City. So really like both of those guys.
Oh, I had not realized that Bogdan had been moved into the starting lineup. And now, of course, his player card's not loading for me. There it is. Oh, yes, indeed he was. 31 minutes. We liked to see that. At least it gives him a solid, more helpful floor with his minutes. He's no stranger to being in the starting lineup, but generally it's been as a result of other guards having injuries. So this looks like it's about his, 10th start or so of the season. So that will be something to keep an eye on going forward. But I do agree that price point and somewhat secure minutes with the now addition of Alec Burks and then Harrison Barnes just gets it muddies the water there a little bit, but good to see. Let's move on here to small forward. Adam, we do have a discounted Joe Harris as we work my way up the pricing list. He is at 4,500. You've got Eric Gordon going against the Golden State Warriors at the same price point. He gets the minutes, I guess we can say. He doesn't. This is a good test for your theory. Is he someone that makes your lineups? Let's assume Harden plays. Is he someone that makes your lineups, or do you just not see the upside from him at this point that you're feeling that he's not going to hurt you? So there are better guys that do have a chance to get the 40 fantasy points.
I mean, I'm sure I'll have him at 4,400. I would be surprised if I don't have more Tyler Johnson. I'd be surprised if I don't have more Kent Bazemore. I'd be shocked if I don't have more Kent Bazemore. I'd be shocked if I don't have more Bogdan Bogdanovic. I'd be surprised if I don't have more Dwayne Wade.
Okay. And that's just, it's one of those where this isn't quite the same Eric Gordon that we had in the past. Price point and the eligibility at shooting guard and small forward now on DraftKings are enticing, but just if you go through those game logs, you're not seeing a ton of upside. You got Taurean Prince going against Phoenix. That's not a horrible spot. Again, tons of mid-tier value here already. As we get to the high end, which is of course where we want to go with our stars and scrubs build, we have plenty of options here. We have Paul George leading the way as the most highly projected player thus far on the overnights. He has not yet played his Friday night game, but assuming everything goes well, great matchup for him here against Sacramento. You've got Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is checking in at 11,000 even on DraftKings. You've got Kevin Durant. You've got LeBron James. We've got some choices here, Adam. How would you like to parse those that quartet out?
Yeah, I mean, Paul George in a nice spot against Sacramento, playing 37, 38 minutes in competitive games, and really benefiting since the minor change in rotation. Has about a 31.8% usage rate. He's averaged over a point and a half per minute. And, it's a good spot. So on one hand, it's tough because you get him at basically the same price point as Giannis and LeBron James. Giannis, obviously the better per minute producer, but you normally are just going to get fewer minutes from Giannis. So it's a spot where I would look to play ownership. I think that if you're going to get a much lower owned Giannis, then you go that route. But if they were going to be similarly owned or Giannis is going to be higher owned, then I think George is actually where I'd rather go. James, of course, in that conversation as well. A friendly matchup against the Pelicans. No shortage of narratives in that one if you want to buy into those.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Future teammates.
I thought about it when I was looking at Brandon Ingram for shooting guard. So, I mean, yeah, no shortage at the top here. I don't think there's really a wrong way to go. They all project, very similarly for me. I would say George and Giannis are slightly more appealing than LeBron.
All right. The mid-tier at this position, we hit some of the more enticing plays because they do have shooting guard and small forward eligibility on DraftKings. But Harrison Barnes, 4,900, not the worst spot there going against OKC. You've got who else did we not speak of? Let's see, Andrew Wiggins, Kyle Kuzma. What do you think about Kuzma in this matchup? In part one and part two, if the Lakers get a win here, and we'd like to think they will, because clearly the New Orleans Pelicans are in DGAF mode, going for their own draft pick, and are going to be looking to rest Anthony Davis in game as much as possible. Do you like Kuzma maybe getting some more minutes in production if this game gets out of hand and LeBron maybe takes an early breather, because he's going to have to carry the load for the next 24 games?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a way that it could go. It's just that the price point on Kuzma is high enough where, you do really need things to go right. And, just even looking at this position, for one, you have all the guys at the top that we talked about, but then, you have an Otto Porter, you have Buddy Hield, you have, Bazemore where he's small forward eligible. It's not that you have Oubre. It's not really a weak position. So I don't think Kuzma will be a priority for me. And that's if we assume Towns is in. If Towns is out, I can basically guarantee I have more Wiggins than Kuzma.
Okay, that definitely is a fair assessment. Let's move along here to power forward. Reminder, if you guys have not yet signed up for Awesemo.com, what are you waiting for? Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, at checkout to receive 50% off any 1-month package that does include Fantasy Cruncher. It also gets you into Slack, where we can teach you the ins and outs of mass multi-entry, of single entry, of cash games, of a variety of things in a variety of sports. A wealth of knowledge is shared by our people in Slack, not just the contributors. We have some very knowledgeable members as well, Adam. I can find myself burning an hour easy every day just seeing what other people have to say about the slate for their first look. Have you been losing time to Slack recently?
No.
Well, you got to get in there. It's definitely a lot of fun. Oh, because you were on the All-Star break. Never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I see you in there all the time. Oh, yes.
No, okay. I was going to say, I haven't, but yeah, it's because there was no basketball going on.
Exactly. All right. Point forward. That would be LeBron James. Let's go with power forwards. Blake Griffin, Lauri Markkanen, both very nice. Julius Randle, it will be interesting to see what happens with his minutes, because we've already heard that they're going to be decreasing, not necessarily limiting minutes, but decreasing Jrue Holiday, who was averaging in the mid to upper 30s for most of the season. We could see him getting down to the lower 30s. I don't know what's going to happen with Randall there. We'll get our first look at that Friday night or Saturday morning once we check out the box scores. But what do you like amongst Randall, Bobby Portis at an increased price point, but a good matchup for him against Indiana that could be without Turner? This should be an intriguing spot here. Anywhere you want to plant your flag.
Yeah, so trying to pull up quickly now the box score for the Pelicans game, because I am really interested to see what happens with Randall. I know he was off to a good start. I know Cheick Diallo also was playing really well, still playing really well, has 13 points and 13 rebounds at the moment.
Make 15 that points 15 points.
Yeah. So I was interested to see how Randall's minutes would go, because you can kind of, I think, spin the theory two different ways. One, that they're just going to play Randall into the ground and that he's not going to be affected by any of this. The other would be that you're going to see Cheick Diallo pick up more minutes. We have 5 minutes to go in the game. We have Julius Randle at 25 minutes. So I think he also has 4 fouls. So it'll be a game to look at on Popcorn Machine. But the fact that Diallo is playing really well again, and that, they don't really have any incentive to play Randall a bunch, I would lean towards maybe shying away from Randall a little bit.
All right, that is just, again, one of those many intriguing things that we will have to decipher. But as we continue down our power forward list, we do have Jason Tatum, who's eligible at both forward spots. He is just 6,100 in a matchup against Chicago. I don't mind that. Al Horford had himself a game on Thursday. I believe he may have actually been the highest scoring player on the slate, or was close to it. In any event, what else do you see here? Perhaps Sabonis against Washington, particularly if Miles Turner is out?
Yeah, I mean, if Turner's out, just go right back to Sabonis. Matchup doesn't really get much better. Not a good rebounding team, not a good defensive team. Sabonis should have his way. It's not an awful play if Turner's in, but if Turner's out, I think it just goes back to being another, really, really, really good play, just like it was on Friday night. Doing Deadman at 5K against Phoenix, I think, is perfectly fine as well. But yeah, Sabonis is absolutely a priority if Turner sits again.
All right. And then marvelous Marvin Bagley. He was outstanding against Golden State. One, that wasn't a great game to watch. I was bouncing, of course, like most people, between that game and the Houston Lakers game, because they were both on. They were both the 10:30 tip on Thursday night. But Bagley ended up with 14 rebounds, 28 points, just 2 fouls, which is good to see. And he ended up with 48 fantasy points in 34 minutes. That is just phenomenal. Definitely someone we want to keep an eye on. Still a reasonable price point. Tougher matchup here against OKC, but we will get them playing up. Or this should be a fast-paced game on both sides. The phraseology I was looking for. We got a 238 over-under in this game. That is currently the highest on the board. So definitely intrigued by Bagley. Jeremy Grant, 4,800, another guy that's got power forward eligibility there. He is intriguing. I think this is a matchup that suits his skills well, so I don't mind him at 4,800. And then you got 4,600 Marvin Williams. It looks like we can, if we read the tea leaves correctly, Adam, find ourselves some intriguing options here in the sub 5K range, which was not what I was expecting to see.
Yeah, I'm with you that it looks like a good matchup for Jeremy Grant. Also with you on Bagley. It's important to note that, the obvious change to that rotation was that Bogdan Bogdanovic slid into the starting lineup. But unlike in previous games this year, where normally it was for an injured Iman Shumpert, this was for Bjelica, and Bjelica picked up a DNP in that game against the Warriors. So it seems like we have finally gotten to Bjelica not playing and Bagley getting his full run, even if he does continue to come off the bench, which is expected to be the case, still picked up 34 minutes, actually led the team in minutes played in that game. So, it's a tough matchup against Oklahoma City, no question, but coming off the bench should help. And, just because there's less usage out there with him, and the pace of the game should be beneficial as well.
All right, let's hit on the Wizards just real quick. How are you feeling about and we talked a little bit about this off air, but how are you feeling about the Bobby Portis, Trevor Ariza, Jeff Green, Bryant, and I'm missing someone, Jabari Parker mix there?
Yeah.
They're all kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, and we had talked before that I thought it was going to be a spot that I approached throughout the rest of the season, where I kind of just played some combination of the lowest owned and the cheapest, because it's going to be really difficult to predict, on any given night who does what, because they are interchangeable and the rotation is probably going to vary a lot. But it's going to be really interesting to go back through their popcorn machine for Friday night's game, because so 2 games ago, we saw a bunch of minutes for Thomas Bryant. We saw like 40 minutes for Jeff Green. We saw 34 minutes for Jabari. We saw 33 for Portis. That was a game that Thomas Satoransky did not play. And basically Bradley Beal just played point guard. And so it let them run different rotations. But in the game against Charlotte with Satoransky back, we still saw big lineups with Jeff Green at the 3, Portis at the 4, and Bryant at the 5. So it's definitely a spot where, I'll obviously do it before or during the show tomorrow and when I write the deep dive article. But if you're doing your own research, make sure you notice that when you go through popcorn machine, because a rotation adjustment like that, where everyone slides up a position, it will make it so we can start giving Thomas Bryant more minutes. Potentially we can start giving more minutes to guys like Parker and Jeff Green, and instead of playing one of them in a lineup, be able to play 2 of them or something like that, especially in appealing matchups. Not that the Indiana one is, but it's just something to pay attention to going forward.
We were watching a show before we did the podcast, Adam, and we flipped by, or I had the channel on the Wizards game from because it's the local sports channel, and my wife said, "Oh, are they winning or losing?" And I said, "Wow, they're playing Charlotte." And she goes, "I don't ever hear you guys talk about Charlotte. Are they not very good?" And I said, "Well, they're kind of like the Wizards." And she said, "Oh, so they have a chance against another crappy team." So.
Yep, and then they lost by 13.
And they lost by 13. But
Bradley Beal, though, have a game.
Yeah, Bradley Beal with 46 points, hit all 10 of his free throws, 16 to 25 from the field, picked up 6 boards and 7 assists for good measure in 42 minutes. That was pretty solid. We did see Trevor Ariza with 39 minutes, a smattering of stats across the board, but a marginal performance. But his price is kind of up a little bit. And then you had Parker and Portis off the bench. Again, your mileage is going to vary here in this one, but I like what Adam was saying, and you just kind of don't go overboard on any one of them and just utilize the matchups and hope you get the right guy on the right night, because they do all have 40 fantasy point upside to varying degrees. So that'll be something we want to keep our eye on. Let's see, getting back to the rest of power forward, I think that will just about do it there. So let's move on to centers here. Reminder again, 11:15 Saturday, you can catch Adam and I on the DFS strategy show. We're covering the NBA slate, all 11 games. We'll turn that into podcast form as well, so you can listen to that when you're out and about doing those fun yet pesky errands on a Saturday. Let's see, assuming Karl Anthony Towns is in, Adam, for starters, do you like him at all going against Milwaukee in Milwaukee?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, and looking at DraftKings pricing for a guide, 10-2 is just a spot where Towns really should never be. I know Minnesota is healthy now. You have Rose back, you have Teague in there, and so it's kind of the lowest per minute production that you can expect out of Towns, but that's still 1.45 to 1.5 fantasy points per minute, and with no Jokic, no Vooch, no I think Drummond. I guess Drummond is on the slate, but with no Jokic or Vooch up in that upper tier price range for Towns, there's not really anyone around him, so it does make me like him. That being said, I do think there are cheaper options that give you plenty of upside, like an Andre Drummond, like DeMarcus Cousins, who played 27 minutes and now has a nice matchup against Houston. There's certainly other ways to go.
All right, what did you think of the return of Clint Capella there? He was 7,000. He's now down to 6,800. He let's see, he had 28 fantasy points, got to start, played 13 minutes. He missed the better part of 6 weeks with a broken thumb, but he is back. Had a double-double, 12 points, 11 boards. So kind of back into his old role, getting his sea legs under him. Is he someone you want to go back to? Because I don't think it's really going to be a problem for him that Kenneth Faried is there as well, and I think they'll both be just fine. I think Capella will clearly be the lead role, but Faried is he'll play center, he'll play forward, and he'll get a lot of minutes off the bench still. I need Faried's price to go down a little bit before I'll be considering him, but I'm still good with Capella here at 6,800. What was your take on that?
Yeah, I like Capella. I like the fact that he got 33 minutes in that first game back, and that they announced immediately that Fareed would be playing at the 4 as well as the 5. So it makes it so Fareed can still get his minutes. Obviously the worst thing would have been, oh, we're going to rest Capella, in game, and he's going to play 26 minutes. Fareed plays 22, and then we'll turn him loose in the playoffs. Like that would have been, useless for us. But so it was good to see that's not happening. And with the price tag being as low as it is right now, I do think Capella is a good play. One other, I guess, mid-range guy to point out, I missed him at power forward, but John Collins going against Phoenix in a really, really good matchup at an appealing price tag. Power forward and center eligible on DraftKings, I do really like.
You know what's interesting about him? Every day for the last couple of weeks, Adam, I have been making sure that I come in under where we have the ownership projections again, proprietary ownership projections from Awesemo.com. But I just haven't been seeing his upside. Now, the only time it cost me was, wait for it, the matchup against Phoenix when he scored 61 fantasy points in Phoenix. But outside of that, he had not topped 40 fantasy points since January 24th. So that looks like that's about a 12-game stretch. So I mean, I understand the theory. I've been grabbing him in draft where we don't have to worry about the salary cap. I just cannot, in good conscience, go with the high 7,000s for him. That's it. There was no point other than that, Adam. Oh, did we lose Adam? What a bummer. All right. Well, let me talk about a couple other spots here, and then we will get on out of here. We also can get, as we mentioned at power forward, you've got Al Horford going at 6,400 on DraftKings against Chicago. That will be one where he will see some Lopez, but he will also likely see some Lauri Markkanen. So that is an interesting spot that we can look to him. You have Jarrett Allen for the Brooklyn Nets. He is at 4,900. That is once again a solid price point. We did see Ed Davis have himself a nice game there against Portland on Thursday. Generally, what I do with Ed Davis and Jarrett Allen when I'm doing my crunchers or my optimizers, I set a rule where I do not play them both on the same team. The main reason I do that is because it's hard for one or the or both of them, shall we say, to have a good game. They were both solid, but Davis was a little bit better on Thursday. So I will probably continue to do the same thing, but I don't mind a smattering of either one of them. You've got Cody Zeller at 5,300 going against Brooklyn. We always do like centers going against Brooklyn because while Allen is a good off-ball defender or backside help block specialist, he doesn't play the most lockdown defense. And then wrapping it up, you got the Alex Len going against one of his former teams, the Phoenix Suns, and Dwayne Dedmon, both coming in at reasonable price points. Kind of a dice roll there. They're on the back-to-back. You'll kind of want to look and see what they did with the minutes. They were facing Detroit, who has a pair of imposing front court members of their own. So we may see them have run a little bit larger. I've not yet broken down the game flow of that box score yet, waiting for that to be up there on the old popcorn machine. But that will be something that Adam and I will talk about a little more and see if we can find ourselves any advantage. Again, that will be at 11:15 Saturday morning on the NBA DFS strategy show. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS on Twitter. I am at EmacDFS, and it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.